As far as the operators are concerned, will 5G help them reduce operating costs or increase it?
I mean, ultimately, 5G is more efficient than 4G. You can carry more traffic over a 5G network, and the costs are not incrementally that significant. So the issue is how you load your networks. I mean, in theory, if I've got a network that in one location regularly carries 100 gigabits per second of traffic, then it would be cheaper for me to have all of that 100 gigabits on 5G than it would to have it on 4G or 3G. So certainly at a cost per bit at a theoretical level, 5G is cheaper than 4G. But the challenge is we can't suddenly move that 100 gigabit per second of traffic. I can't flick a switch and move it from 4G to 5G overnight. It's a long-term evolution. So you have the challenge as an operator of 5G is an extra cost on top of your other network that you're running. For many, the upgrade to 5G has evolved a bit of a refresh of the radio network. So you may be replacing an old 4G radio site with a new 4G and 5G site that is lower power, is significantly more efficient to run at a site level, but also at a sort of a per user, per traffic level as well. So there's no getting away from the fact that 5G is cheaper than 4G if we're comparing like for like. The challenge is, that's the theory. If you're running the network, you're not comparing like for like. You've got to react to the problems in front of you. And what we've seen with the rise in energy costs over the last couple of years, there's been this huge focus on operators trying to accelerate the switch off of their old legacy networks. I mean, that's the biggest challenge for operators from an operating cost and an energy budget point of view is legacy networks are just really bad for that. They might not carry much traffic, but they still require a lot of energy to power. So 3G networks are a real energy hog from a sort of a radio network point of view. The same with copper networks on the wireline side. If I'm an operator and I could shut down all my local exchanges for copper and just have fiber everywhere, run a pure fiber network, the savings there on my energy bill are massive. Now, the reality is I've got to do that over time. So if I'm a mobile operator looking at traffic evolution on my network and seeing it growing 20, 30, 40% a year, economically, I need to try and get as much of that growth, as much of that 20, 30, 40% onto the most efficient network, onto 5G as quickly as possible. So there's a strong sort of drive from that perspective. 5G will help operators to optimize costs. It's just you've got to work hard to shift the legacy traffic onto those more efficient networks, because otherwise it is just one extra network you're having to run alongside everything else.
Will the growing demand for data offset the capacity and cost efficiency benefits brought by 5G technology?
If you're deploying in new frequency bands, which now the majority of networks do, I mean, those are, once you get up into the C band, into the like 4.9 giga, up into those higher bands, typically you have significantly larger allocations. So a combination of spectral efficiency and access to more spectrum, you can be talking in the range of sort of 10 plus times the capacity on a 5G network compared to what you have on 4G. And that's not direct like for like. That's simply the fact that in some scenarios, I may be running a 4G network in 40 megahertz of spectrum, but for 5G, I have access to 200 megahertz of spectrum. So you already get the uplift from that point of view. So certainly, there's significant extra capacity in 5G networks to support those higher levels of use. You only have to look at the fixed wireless access market, the fact that we've got sort of Verizon and T-Mobile in the US actively pushing 5G for home broadband, where users are consuming 300 to 400 gigabytes of data a month rather than 20 to 30 on a smartphone. I mean, there's like a 15 to 20x increase in usage there. I mean, if the networks weren't efficient, then none of these operators would be using 5G to offer fixed wireless access. So the economics are there to support significantly higher bandwidth. So the challenge for the operator isn't, I'm building a bigger network, but people will consume more data. The challenge is probably the opposite. I need to give users an excuse to use more data because I've suddenly built this network with 10 times the capacity that I previously had, and people are just doing twice as much on their phones. I need to get people using 5 or 10 times as much data. So I need all those cloud gaming and other services and ultra high definition content just to drive the sort of the bandwidth consumption up.